love answering real questions from real people with real problems, and that's what I'll be doing today. If you would like to submit your question, just email me at support@rickolderman.com and I'll try to get to it as soon as I can. And just so you know, I have a new book coming out in the fall of 2024 called Pain Patterns: Why You Are in Pain and How to Stop It. And if you'd like to be notified when that book comes out, just mention that in that email too, and we'll put you on the list and let you know. All right, let's get to the question. Lee asks, I play tennis and pickleball and have developed pain, in parentheses, impingement on the front side of my shoulder. What is the diagnosis process, and are there stretches or exercises I can do to help this heal and recover? Great question, Lee. The diagnosis process would be first to go to your medical provider. They will either send you for x-rays or MRIs or send you to a physical therapist to assess this to see whether there is a tear going on here or some other larger structural problem that you should be concerned about, especially if the problem has been ongoing. I strongly recommend that you seek out a medical provider to address this. That is how diagnosis happens. All right, so let's assume that you have been working with a medical provider and they're not making progress with your impingement issue. Hopefully, if you are working with a medical provider, they gave you the diagnosis of an impingement problem. And this isn't something that you just got off the internet. So an impingement problem typically means that the upper arm bone here is pinching against the acromion early or excessively with arm raising motions. Why would this be happening? The focus is often on the rotator cuff muscles, strengthening those and so forth, and which is fine for most people. When you strengthen the rotator cuff muscles, I'm sure you've seen thousands of videos where someone's doing tube exercises like this. Well, what those exercises do is it helps pull the humeral head down and give more space to the between the humeral head and the acromion here on the shoulder blade. But Lee, I'm going to assume that you've already been trying this. It sounds like you've been doing something for this already, and that's typically what most people do. So the thing that's missed by most practitioners is that they're not addressing the scapular part of the equation. The most common problem associated with impingement problems from a scapular standpoint is that of scapular depression. Now, the scapula, one of the jobs of the scapula is when the arm is raising, the scapula is supposed to rotate and slide away from the spine and elevate to help support the arm in its motion. And when it does that, it clears the head of the arm bone in the shoulder joint. And so this usually is what's missing with most people who are doing shoulder work, is that they're not fixing the shoulder blade. Especially with something like pickleball, motions down around here don't really require the shoulder blade to upwardly rotate because usually that starts to happen at about 60 degrees of elevation of the arm. Well, that's, around here, and that's where most of the play is. So if your scapula is not prone to upwardly rotating anyway and is depressed, then this isn't going to trigger it to start changing anything. It's only when your arm goes up overhead that will trigger that shoulder blade to start rotating. And if that's deficient already, then this is why most people are developing impingement problems, is because of this. So I think one of the most simple exercises that I have for something like this is just to go to a wall, put the pinky of your hand against the wall, and slide that hand up the wall. Now, when your elbow gets to about 90 degrees level with the shoulder, what I have most people do, especially in the beginning, is shrug the shoulder up to feel it pushing the arm up the wall. And then when they get to the top, if it's not painful, lean into the wall gently to stretch that connection there. And then when you lower it back down, keep the shoulder shrugged up slightly as the elbow is starting to come back down. And then once it gets to about 90 degrees again, you can let the arm and shoulder blade come down together. And what this does is it starts to train the shoulder blade to move when it's supposed to be moving. And this is a really nice stretch. Most people really feel good with this stretch. So that would be an easy one to start training your shoulder blade how to start moving. I'm going to take a break here to ask you to please subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when future videos come out. Thank you. Now, another thing that I want to mention is that one of the reasons the shoulder blade isn't moving is because the shoulder blade rests on the rib cage. And if you have a side bending problem, which is where the rib cage is sitting too low and usually the same hip is resting too high, then the foundation of the shoulder blade isn't correct because the rib cage isn't correct. I mentioned this in this video for sciatic pain about side bending problems, and you can watch that video to learn more about that pattern of issues. So you may need to correct, and especially if you're playing pickleball, what if you have any old injuries? Let's say this is, I think, the right shoulder. You don't say, but let's just say that this is a right shoulder problem. If you have older injuries on the right foot, knee, hip, or back, then likely you have a right side bending problem, which means that the right rib cage is lower. And therefore, that's what is depressing the shoulder blade. So you can do all the arm slides in the world if you want, but if you don't correct, and all the rotator cuff strengthening in the world, but if you don't correct the source of the problem that's causing the side bending problem, then this is just going to be returning again and again and again. So not to make it sound too complicated, but this is how the body works. A lot of injuries just don't happen in isolation. You have to think of your body as a system of things. And so there is a system of problems that are usually causing one area to become most vulnerable. So you can just focus on that, and that might help some of you. But for those of you with chronic issues and nothing's working, it's usually because your system is broken and you need to fix the system of problems. So I hope that helps Lee give you some things to work on to start solving this impingement issue and think about it perhaps differently. All right, again, if you're interested in submitting a question, just email me at support@rickolderman.com. And if you want to be notified of my Pain Patterns book coming out in the fall of 2024, just let us know there and I'll reach out to you and let you know when it's available on Amazon.